What up, YouTube? It's your boy Joe with Meteoric Serpents coming back at you with episode 2 of the Colubrid Corruption Podcast. Today's guest is going to be Billy Hunt from Uwabami Reptiles. I got that right. I checked with him beforehand. Guys, absolutely stoked to be back. I think last week's episode was awesome with Kevin. Obviously just getting the ball rolling. Wanted to talk some more of these species. Billy has some awesome stuff in his collection, so I think it's going to be a good time. Let's see who's in the chat tonight. See what's going on. My dog, Wiz Constrictors, first one in the building. What up, dude? Eric's More Factory. What's up, man? North Star, Mike, what's going on? Thanks for being here. Brian Heathhead Hatchery. What up, man? Morph Valley, man, Freddy. What's going on? Bosa, repping you today, dog. What's going on? Luke, what's going on? Row 5.0, how you doing? Ricky, Cuzzo, what up? Nicole, Lady Tiss, Retic Queen, what's going on? My dog, he created all my designs, basic, Matt Torrey. He's awesome. Thank you, bro. Don D, what's going on? All right, awesome. And just a couple things before we get started. I did want to let everyone know that I do have Meteoric Serpents shirts available. I have them in like all sizes. So if you're ever interested in something, let me know, shoot me a message, and we can work on that. But without further ado, let's bring out our guest for tonight. Billy, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Hey, what's up? How's it going?
Pretty good. Happy to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So background, how me and Billy met. We actually met at Daytona, and we're definitely going to talk about this more. But I know Matt Most, and this episode 2, I'm bringing him up again. He said he was sending some snakes down to you, so I was looking all over at Daytona for your booth, and then I found it, and of course I had to buy a couple snakes. But yeah, that's how we met. We started talking, and realized you had a lot of species, and we've been talking over Instagram the last few months, which is all cool and stuff. But yeah, man. So just wanted to start off. Can you give everyone a little bit background about you, where you at in the country, a little bit of background about you, how you got into reptiles and everything like that?
Yeah, for sure. So started keeping reptiles when I was a kid. Started with the leopard gecko, kind of the same story that everyone else
Okay.
has done. Funny thing, when I started, I was actually, I don't want to say scared of snakes. I was just kind of uneasy around them. That kind of turned into, after a few years of keeping a lot of lizard species and stuff like that, which helped me with my husbandry and stuff. So once I got to, finally finding a snake that I liked, which ended up being a carpet,
Yeah.
I got one of those, and then it just kind of all went downhill from there. And it's
Okay.
just been, building the collection since then.
Okay.
Yeah, as far as where I'm at, I'm out of Tampa, Florida.
Tampa.
Yeah, and the collection, I primarily focus on carpet pythons, but I also have quite a bit of the old world rat snakes and South American colubrid stuff, and some boas and things like
Yeah.
that.
It's a lot of cool stuff. Your collection is fantastic. If anyone in the chat has a chance to scroll through Billy's Instagram, I mean, some real top-notch pictures of some really awesome animals. So it's impressive to see the collection you've built. And I always enjoy seeing that and the diversity. You have a ton of species and stuff like that. So yeah. So yeah, you started when you were a kid. About how old you think with that leopard
Uh,
gecko?
I was about 11 or 12
Okay. And how
when that
old are you
happened.
now?
I'm 32.
32. Okay. So you've been keeping for quite some time. And that's about when I started. I got my first snake at 10 and have been keeping consistently since then. So yeah. how do you feel? Because I always feel like when you start young like that, and you really realize that you love it, I feel like those are the people who like are just, hands down, like so into it, the reptile game. Would you agree?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, not to sound like a, a salty old guy, but I've seen a lot of different people come and go just
Right.
in
Okay.
the time that I've kept stuff, and um, seeing the cycles that the hobby has done. I got in basically right when the leopard gecko boom,
Okay.
it was coming to an end, but it was still there. Like I remember going to Daytona my first year, and like the line just to see Ron Tremper's table, like that
Okay.
was almost an aisle in itself. Just to see the newest albino combo that he had, and just insane. And then of course when the ball pythons hit with the pied stuff and all that, and the
Right.
beardies. It's just been cool to see, how everything's progressed, and it's cool to see it in real time how it's going now. It's changed a lot, but it's been cool to
Okay.
see.
Yeah, and you might find this one interesting. I was vending because Paul, I don't think he's here. Paul McIntyre, he had me and Sassobek Reptiles at his booth a few shows ago. So I was vending with him, hearing like stuff from someone like that. He's been in the game for a long time, like an OG leopard gecko
Yeah,
breeder. Yeah.
yeah. I kind of geek out on that stuff, like the
Yeah.
history part of it, and hearing a
Yep.
lot of the older guys. And I mean, I talked to a guy, Mark Weiss. I met him I was doing a presentation for the local herp society here, the
Okay.
Suncoast Herp Society, and I ended up meeting him, and he was telling me some stories, and he's talking about, and there wasn't any regulations, and how like he's in the Amazon having a tour guide take him through, down the river, and he's looking for emeralds, and just a whole different time, man. It's so cool to see, where it was, where it's at now, and all the progression we've had as a hobby and husbandry, and just information that we know on these species. It's a
Right.
cool time to be in the hobby for sure.
No, 100%. And as you were getting into it, because you started so young, once you started to really evolve your game and especially getting into like the carpets and stuff, was there anyone there to kind of help mentor and guide you? Because I know even at my age, not that I'm like young like a kid, but of course I have people like I'm asking for advice all the time just because, you don't know what you don't know. So was there
Yeah.
anyone like that for you?
Actually, it's really funny. I looked really hard for one, and I
Okay.
couldn't get anyone to really take me under their wing. After high school, I moved down here to Tampa. I grew up in Jacksonville.
Okay.
Um, so once I came down here, and of course with just the amount of shows that are in this area, between Tampa and Orlando, it's
Right.
crazy. The hobby here is pretty, as far as Florida goes, it's probably Tampa, Orlando, and then Miami. Is where a lot of the stuff happens.
Yeah.
And yeah, I couldn't find anybody. I had to kind
Really.
of figure out a lot of things on my own. Uh, One of the biggest examples, when I had my first clutch, sex and snakes. You read
Right.
all this stuff, and they're like, hey, find somebody that's experienced and can help you out, and all that. I reached out to so many people. I offered to pay all that, and that I just kept getting links of YouTube videos like, here, just look at
Yeah.
this, you'll be fine. I don't have time. So with that being said, not the woe is me thing, it all worked out. I've tried to, anyone that does ask for help or anything like that, if I'm able to, I'll take the time to do that,
Right.
because it sucks to kind of feel like, hey, I'm asking for help and nobody's helping out, but you
Yeah.
see them at these shows every single weekend, like they have time, but you know
Yeah. No,
I
I
have
think
more. I'm sorry.
go
um
ahead. Go ahead.
I definitely, I guess if you want to call it mentorship, I definitely have more of that now.
Yeah.
um with a lot of the guys that I talk to regularly. Of course, with the Morelia guys, the NPR guys, I
Yeah.
talk to them all the time. Uh, they're awesome. They've helped me out a lot. Eric Kohler, Jason Balin, the
Okay.
the usual guys.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
East Coast carpet guys is what some people call them. And as far as the Colubrid side of things, Matt Most,
Yeah.
obviously, it's kind of where our connection happened, and then Rob Stone.
Okay.
Has been a big help for me just on figuring out things. And, since I kept pythons and boas for the most part before I got into the colubrids, kind of breaking that mindset to change towards a colubrid mindset. I still find myself struggling with that
Right.
sometimes, but those
Okay.
guys have helped out a ton.
Awesome. Yeah, and I always feel it's important, like you had mentioned, like kind of giving back. Because even if you didn't have it, like, I mean, yeah, so for me, I grew up and then I worked at a pet store where my manager, my boss at the time, he taught me like all the basics, but like it really laid a very good foundation, like his knowledge, because he was an old school like boa and python breeder. He had like he worked a lot with boas back in the day up in New York. But yeah, so getting all that like baseline knowledge I think is so important. And I think that's what helped out with me being so diverse in my collection and wanting to expand on different things. So I always feel that it's important to give back and teach to others, because that's how we keep this hobby going.
Yeah, for sure. And it
Yeah.
takes little effort, man. It's insane. That's why I love vending shows, because just just talking to people.
Yeah.
I had one quick little story. I had a couple come up to me and they just got a jungle carpet from a flipper because I get it, they're cheaper and all that. I was there when I first got into it. You kind of don't realize if you get animals from an established breeder, there's other things that come along with that, even though if you're spending a little more.
Right.
But if anyone comes up to me, I'm not going to turn them away. Oh, you didn't buy from me, I'm not going to talk to you. Like that's not what I'm here for. I'm here because I
Yeah.
love the animals. I'm not here because I'm trying to make a buck. If I was, I'd be in trouble. uh, but they're asking me, hey, like, we just got this one, we have another one at home, it hasn't eaten in like 7-8 months, it was a jungle carpet. I'm going through all the the usual things and all that, and I've learned that especially pythons love birds. Birds are a huge thing. I think as we all get kind of stuck in they have to eat lab mice and rats, eat that or die.
Yep.
When you start, if you start like looking at studies and stuff like that, and like even carpet, I always go back to carpets, I'm sorry, but if you look up pictures of wild carpets in Australia and Papua New Guinea, you are almost always going to see them, if it's a feeding picture, eating some type of macaw or cockatoo or
In a
some type of
tree.
bird. Yeah, or
Yep.
hanging from somebody's garage or something like that.
Okay.
Like it's always a bird almost every single time.
Yeah.
So I just let them know, like, hey, like, I've had good luck with this. I told them how to scent it and all that. And that night, I think that was Saturday of the show. That night,
Okay.
they messaged me and was like, it ate right away. Thank you so much.
Yep.
I'm like, that's what it's about, like
Well, what's funny
that's
is, yeah, I just
go.
had a buddy. He had a ball python go off of food for a year. He just fed it a chick. It ate right away. It hasn't eaten.
Yeah, it's
It
crazy.
hasn't touched a rodent in a year, and ate a
Hmm.
chick right away. So it's
Yeah.
interesting. Um, and you're talking about being diverse with the birds. There's a guy that's kind of local to me with quail. I actually think I'm gonna get some quail for the rat snakes. I think that's gonna be good
It's
to
a game changer.
yeah,
It's a
vary up their
game changer,
diet.
man.
Yeah.
I just had that with I got a pair of 4-line rats in Tinley,
Okay.
and my female, she just would not touch anything. I'm trying everything that I had, and my buddy Jason Hood
Yep.
produces quail. That's who
Yep.
he does them, and yeah. So at the show last weekend, I was like, hey man, can I get a couple of those? And sure enough, as soon as I put one in front of her, it's like she never missed a meal. So now she's
Right.
good to go. And I got frozen ones that I'm keeping her going with, and then I'm going to try to transition into putting rodents into her diet. But I always
Okay.
have the quail too.
Nice.
So.
Cool. Yeah, so now transitioning into some of the colubrids. When did you start getting into some of those? Because obviously, like you said, the Morelia is more of your bread and butter. I see you have carpets. You have green trees as well, right?
I used to. I don't have any at
Oh,
the
you don't
moment.
have. Okay.
Yeah, not at the
Gotcha.
moment, but
But
I'll get
either
them again.
way, yeah. which are awesome. I'm starting to love those and all that. But so when did like the colubrids kind of start for you, and what was like the first one you got?
So interest was almost instantly. Um, right after I got my second carpet,
Okay.
um, I saw some baby yellow line rats, or Colognathus flavolineus, the copper rats that come from
Okay.
Indo and stuff. And they were on Ben Siegel's website back when he was still doing stuff. And I remember I emailed him and was like, "Hey, I'm interested in these guys. What can you tell me about them?" And they messaged back and they were like, "These things are really mean. They suck. You don't want it." And that was what they left it at. And I'm like, "Oh, all right, I guess I'm not getting that
Really?
one." So I kind of waited for a bit, um, and then I kind of got them all at the same time, or you know, pretty close to the same time.
Okay.
I ended up with a pair of Japanese rats, which kind of
Okay.
started the whole thing. A pair of red-tailed green rats, Gonyosoma,
Yep.
and then Chinese beauty snakes. So kind
All
of the
right.
staples of what I still like to this day is what I started with back in, that was probably 2010, 2011, somewhere in there.
Okay. So you skipped right over like the easiness of like some North American colubrids. You dove right into
Yeah.
Asian species that could potentially be a little more difficult.
Uh, so what I found, um, we'll probably get into this more detail later, but
Yeah.
the Gonyosoma, yes, they definitely. I probably wasn't ready for those at the
Okay.
time, because they're a whole different beast. But they're one of those species that, um, as far as observing and just watching an animal and seeing how they behave and making a really nice enclosure and all that, like easily one of my favorite species. Those and tiger rats are like just the best for that.
Yeah.
Uh, as far as keeping, in my opinion, Japanese rats, I mean, they're just like North American colubrids.
Yes, and you
They're
did tell me
bulletproof.
that recently. Yeah,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
cool.
If you can do the Texas rats, you can do Japanese rats.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Nice. And by the way, not for you, but chat, I wanted to mention this at the beginning. If you have any questions, I'll try to read them on the side, but if you have any questions, drop them in the chat for Billy, and we could run through that as the conversation goes on. If you guys have anything. Um, okay, so now you started with those like three, and it's expanded into more because I know you have. Do you
A
still
little
have
bit more.
that blue beauty I saw on your Instagram? You still have that guy?
I still have Blue Beauty. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a lot of colubrids.
Okay.
I got a lot, yeah.
Can you run through at least a majority of them if you could remember off the top of your head?
Sure, sure, no problem. So Orthriopus is my favorite genus. So
Okay.
that's the beauty
Yep.
snake complex. So I have blues, I have Taiwans, I have Ridley Eye, I have Chinese. I'm going real deep into the Chinese,
Okay.
with all the mutations and stuff. There's so much work to be done with those, so I'm really excited to be a part of that. I have a Grabowski that's really cool. Those are the
Okay.
newer ones that are coming in through Sumatra and all that.
Right.
Um, yeah, I think that's it for the beauties because I don't have any Yunnins, I don't have any Macquards. Japanese aren't in the hobby. I think there's
Someone
one.
just offered me beauties for my scaleless cystic Texas rats.
Well, that I mean, I know what I would say to that.
I know you
But
probably would. I don't know if I'm ready for that.
well, depends on what kind of beauties they are. Um,
They're Chinese.
so the Chinese are the smallest subspecies.
Oh, they
You're
are.
looking, yeah, they're the smaller ones. They're a lot more shy, timid. They're not going to be like your blues are going to be your ones. Well, they're the largest and they have the largest attitudes as well.
Yes, that I've
Um,
seen and heard.
yeah, but they're still fun, I mean, a
Yeah.
freaking, a dang, 10 foot
I was gonna say those guys
Beauty
get
is.
like a solid 9 feet plus, right?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. But what's cool is they're so slender bodied
right.
that it can coil up, and you'll have this 9 to 10 foot snake coiled up, and it could be on a 12 by 12 tile, and you would have no idea. But as soon as it starts stretching out, you're like,
Yeah,
man, where did this come from?
yeah,
Yeah, it's different from the pythons and stuff.
yeah. And I think that's something, that some of like the Python people miss about some colubrids because they don't know that there are some of these like, I'll call them the larger colubrids, even if they don't get super like thick, but they get long and they still give you that big snake kind of feel and maybe a little bit of run for your money if we're talking blue beauties
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so I
with
have a pair.
attitude.
I
Okay.
got a pair of those, and the male is every bit of, a Spitfire. The
Okay.
female, she's a sweetheart, man. So I'm really lucky with that. I'm
Nice.
happy I don't have a pair that keeps me on my toes. Uh, but I'll keep going with the other stuff I have. So that's what I got for beauties. Um, Japanese rats, of course.
Yeah.
See, I got some stuff around here. Recently I've gotten into some European rat stuff. So ladder rats, leopard
I
rats.
saw the leopards. Yeah.
Yeah, they're cool. Um, I got some Dion's, or steps rats, depending on what you want to call them.
Okay.
What else do we got? Because I got some right here. The four-line rats. I'm really excited about that. 'Cause those you don't see those that often. They're just big European four-line rats. They basically look like yellow rats on steroids once they get
I was gonna
bigger.
say I don't know much about those. So they look like I think I may have seen a picture of one. So that's
Mhm.
what it is, kind of like a yellow rat snakeish.
To to a point, but they're so much more beefier. Like their heads, like
Okay.
even the ones I have a yearling and a hatchling, and like their heads are just so beefy.
Okay.
It's just super cool.
Yeah.
They're cool snakes. Um, see, outside of those guys, I got trinket rats. I like the Colignathus stuff. Got trinket rats, radiated
Okay.
rats. Because I like stuff that likes to display and bite and keep my blood pressure up.
Yep.
Let's see what else. Then South American stuff. I got the tiger rats. Those are cool. I can't be friends with Jason Hood and not have
Jason.
tiger rats.
Yep.
Yeah, that guy.
I'll
Then
I'll tell you
also,
what, his table at Daytona, those the Mexicanos, those were showstoppers for me when I saw
yeah.
them in person, and the yellow black contrast, I was like, holy, like those
See,
are
and
crazy looking.
we talked about that, and those were probably like the only babies at the time in the world, with that
Yeah.
locality and stuff. The Tamaulipas. I'm not good with the regions down there, but that's the locality of those, and those go back to like ancient lines, and it's really
Okay.
cool. He's been working on trying to produce those for a long time, so to see him finally do that. But the funny thing was he has those on the table, and they're showstoppers. All the other tiger rats on his table are also trophy animals, but put those next to the
Yeah.
Mexicanos, and it's like, yeah,
Right.
those are all right. And it's like, no, you don't understand. Like these are these are killer animals. But
Yeah, and then he also has like Cribos on the table, but they're still getting outshined by potentially
yeah,
by those guys.
yeah, and this black kid, that freaking guy, he's got he's yeah, like I have a really cool collection, but then like you start seeing all this stuff like guys like he has, I'm like, I'm
Right.
still getting there. But it just kind of goes to show like work with what you like, and
Of
it'll
course.
all work itself out. And he's put, gosh, probably 2 decades into all the stuff that he has. So
Yeah.
so it's good to see him producing stuff like that, be able to show things. But outside of that, special with him too, I got the Pacilinotus, so the neotropical bird-eating snakes.
Okay.
Um, those are just cool. They're you look up pictures of those when like you research them online, you Google image search or whatever. Every single one that you see is in a defensive posture, essed up, gaping, ready to go. You you get these things in hand, like captive bred ones, and they are just puppy dogs.
Oh
Like
yeah.
yeah, it's insane. I was expecting like a radiated rat is what I was expecting. And
Okay.
not at all what I ended up. I was pleasantly surprised. I'm like, all right, these are these are going to be fun to mess with then. So um, yeah, as far as the colubrid stuff, that's I think that's oh gosh, right in front of me. I just got tricolor hogs too, and
Okay.
and then a western hog. Yeah,
Nice.
there's so much to keep up with, but
Yeah.
yeah, I think colubrid wise, and the rhinos, of course. How can
Yeah,
I forget the
rhinos.
rhinos? What am I doing? Yeah, but
No,
yeah, a lot. There's a lot here.
yeah. So what have you seen? Because I definitely want to ask about the rhinos because it's something I'm interested in, and I think we've probably talked about this off camera. But rhinos seem to be a species that people are, I wouldn't say confused about, but like they could be tricky to get going. I know babies, you have to sometimes start with fish, and then it's like playing a scenting game with some pinkies.
Mhm.
What has your experience been with keeping rhinos? Did you get them at like a very early age or when? Yeah. So talk about that a little bit.
So all of my rhinos have come from Rob Stone.
Okay.
And Rob's been working rhinos for 25 years. Like he's really put a lot of time into that. And Matt does projects with him too.
Yeah.
So they put a lot of time into those animals. So something that Rob does that I respect a ton is he doesn't sell animals until they're a year old.
Okay.
And he does that so like you don't have to buy a baby and end up doing the fish thing and all that. Uh, my buddy Justin Smith just produced his first rhino clutch this year. He's crazy about them too because they're just such cool snakes.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm in some group chats with all those guys, and they were basically saying that pretty much anymore because they've been um, captive bred so much. A lot of times they're not even messing with fish anymore. They're just
Okay.
kind of dropping pinkies into the water bowl, and it ends up being because they're going to most likely be in the water bowl anyway. Babies soak a ton. That's kind of one of the things that they don't know for sure what the horn is for, but they are speculating that it's a kind of like a sensory thing when they're in the water, especially as young babies, so they can
Okay.
feel the vibrations of a fish coming by, kind of like a tentacled snake would be to a degree, which makes sense to me. But we don't know for sure. That's all speculation. But
Okay.
um, they're saying just kind of drop in frozen thawed pinkies. Don't put a live pinky in the water. Uh, just that, and kind of having the disruption in the water and all that kind of gets a feeding response from them, and they get going pretty good.
Interesting. Okay. And then in terms of setup, like what are you keeping them in? Are they in like enclosures, or are they in racks or
As of now, they're in tubs, but I'm in the
okay.
process of setting up cages for them. I'm gonna have plants and arboreal hides, and
Nice.
they are very adaptable. They're kind of in the same realm as carpets, in my
Okay.
opinion, where they'll do good in just about any setup that you give them. You give them height
Okay.
and branches and all that, they'll use it. You set them up in a rack, easy peasy, they'll be just as good. So it's kind of just more a personal preference thing. I always thought they were like an advanced species, and I ended up going to Rob Stone's place. I was a couple years ago. I was in Colorado, and where I was staying, I just reached out to him. He ended up being 20 minutes away from me. So I'm like, "Hey man, let's let's meet up." And
Okay.
I saw his stuff, and he kind of ran me through what he does, and I was like, "I can do that. I can totally do that." So that's kind of
Yeah.
how it all started. And yeah, so they're in tubs right now, but here in the next couple months, they're going to be set up in 2-foot cubes and more arboreal, and
Nice.
kind of set up a little nicer.
Yeah. And you had mentioned about the carpets being adaptable because I always thought they had to be in cages, but I think I only heard recently that like they could be in racks just fine. And I think I thought they might have gotten a little bit bigger than some of them do. So I
Mhm.
may have just been misperceived in that regard.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everybody has their own opinion. I'm not going to get into the rack versus cage thing because that's
Right, of
that's a
course.
personal thing. Do what you
Yeah,
want.
yeah.
I'm not going to shake my finger at anybody for doing what they want. Doesn't affect me. But I keep them both ways. I have
Okay.
carpets and cages. I have carpets and racks, and they do just as fine. Now, with that being
Well, I think
said,
the only people who have a right to speak about it are people like you who may do both and can actually give credited behavior patterns or whatever and can actually talk about it.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, you look at species that perform well in the hobby and in captivity with us, they're usually ones that are very adaptable. And when I say that, kind of think about species that when you research them, like how they are in the wild, they're ones that are always kind of close to, human civilization and stuff, if that makes sense. Like the ones you find in people's garages and stuff like
Right.
that. Usually you see species that do that and interact with humans that are in their habitat anyway, and can end up being exposed to all these different microclimates and everything. They do well in captivity. Those obscure species that nobody ever sees, and there's like 3 sightings of them ever in history, and then someone gets them in captivity and they don't do well and they don't know why. They're just not as adaptable. And that's how I look at it anyway.
Right.
And the rhinos are, they're the same way. They can handle anything, and the carpets too. Obviously, with the carpets, I'm not putting a 8-foot carpet in a rack.
Right. No,
That's not
I get
right
that.
either. But I also make a point to, even though they can get 8, 9, 10 foot, especially the coastals, just because something can get, like retics are a perfect example. And I use this
Yeah.
one all the time at shows. Just because a retic can get 20, 25 feet long doesn't mean a retic has to get 20, 25 feet long. They're going to
Right.
be, then if you're looking at it from a breeding standpoint, they're going to be sexually mature way before that. And it's the same thing with the carpets. A lot of my carpets, I keep them in the 4 to 5, maybe 6 foot range. And
Okay.
yeah, I'm not getting monster clutches, but for my setup, I'm trying to, you can control how big they get to a point.
Right.
It's just like us. If, we start eating 10,000 calories a day, we're going to get huge. If we eat a
Yeah.
healthy diet, we're not going to get as big as we would if we're getting pumped with food. It's the same thing with, these animals in captivity. So I
Gotcha.
try to preach that when people ask me the size question and all. I'm like, well, it depends on how you feed them. And it's funny because sometimes I feel bad because newer keepers, they're kind of like, what are you talking about? I hear they get 9 feet. They're supposed to get 9 feet. Like, no,
Right.
they don't have to get that. Like right now, my biggest carpet's probably under 7 foot. Like I just, there's no reason to make these things monsters. It doesn't do anything for them.
Right.
If
Okay.
they're 20 years old and they're that big, okay, they got there at a healthy rate. But if they're 4 years old and they're 8, 9 feet, you kind of probably did something that's going to make that animal not live as long as it could. Oh, well, that's my
Gotcha.
soapbox for that.
Yeah.
Got on a
No,
rant. My bad. My bad.
no, it's all good. And one thing you kind of touched on, which I think is important, is that, there is a bit of kind of misinformation that gets put out there still, or maybe not misinformation, but it's more mainstream media. So it gets shown to the newer keeper and they don't understand. So like when you tell them something like that, they're just like, what do you mean? And even, that goes for me, like me asking you about rhino rats. I think they're tough. And you're like, no, they're not that bad. But it's because that's the first thing I see.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
I don't know.
100%.
So
Yeah, 100%.
yeah, that's why the education is so important.
Well, I've started doing this. I've always kind of done it to a degree, but I've really ramped it up in the past probably 2, 3 years. If I and the stuff I keep and stuff that I look into keeping, yeah, I'll look up, breeder accounts and stuff like that. I kind of stay away from care sheets anymore because,
Okay.
they all kind of say the same thing if you start looking at enough of them.
Yeah.
Uh, but scientific papers and field studies and stuff like that, if you start looking into those kind of things, you really start to, they can be hard to digest. I'll admit that sometimes, but if you go at it with the right mentality, you can pick out so many good things that you can implement in your captive husbandry that's going to, just
Right.
benefit the animal and, ultimately benefit, you as a keeper, because how rewarding is it to have an animal that, you learned something from a field study that, you didn't see anywhere else, so you don't see anyone else that's doing it like that in captivity, and then you put whatever into the cage and then you see a whole different behavior. Like
Right.
that's what's been getting me excited more than, just breeding a whole bunch anymore lately, is that kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
No, and where do you even start with, like, the field study thing? Like, where do you look? 'Cause I've heard that as well, but it's not even
Mhm.
like, I wouldn't know where to start looking.
Uh, well, if you want, I'll give you a whole list after the
Okay.
show. I can do that. But
Cool.
for to put something out there for here, just go to Google or Google Scholar, and
Okay.
I started with herpetological journals, and you'll end up getting the Russian journal, the you know Japanese journal, the uh, South American, North American. You can find so much information out there, man. It's insane. And I've even gone as far as some of the species that I can't find a lot of things on. I'll end up finding species that they feed on, and
Okay.
I've gone I've gone down that rabbit hole where, like,
Interesting.
all right, I'm researching their prey and kind of putting two and two together. You kind of have to connect the dots a little bit, but um,
Gotcha.
you can get something out of that too. It just depends on how deep you want to go with that stuff.
Okay. Yeah, and I've been liking, you know, like, literature more. Like, I bought, the book Matt had a hand in, and I'll be completely honest, I still have not read it, but I have to read it about the Chinese, colubrids, and then I just bought Zach's book, that he wrote, Dr. Loafman's book.
Yeah,
So I'm
both are great
I'm excited
books.
to
Yeah,
read that. Yeah.
yeah, both are great books. Yeah, the Chinese one, I believe, was the one that Kevin Messenger
Messenger, yep,
wrote.
yep.
Yeah, that book's fantastic. He's done a ton of field work, and there's a lot of good information on there. And then, of course, Zach put out a freaking banger of a book. I was able to get
Yeah.
it in Tinley, so I got him to sign my copy and stuff. That was so
I
cool.
I ordered it. I got it signed, but I ordered it. Yeah, I didn't get to go to Tinley. I do have to make it there for sure, though.
It's a good time. People ask me, how does it compare to Daytona? And you can't compare the two, man. I can't explain it. You have to go, and then once you go, you'll get what I'm saying. But they're both killer shows, and it's
Right,
cool to see stuff that you don't see here in Florida. You see a bunch of retics and anacondas everywhere, and scrub pythons and all that. So it's cool to see that stuff again, since we don't see
right.
that here anymore.
Well, it was interesting because I was listening to Colubrid and Colubroid Radio, and I want to say Zach called Daytona the Colubrid show, and I thought Tinley was a bit more diverse of a show, but obviously I've never been before. What can you say about that in terms of diversity at the show
So
compared to
Daytona,
Daytona, possibly?
yeah, no, Daytona is definitely a Colubrid show for sure.
Okay.
Corns and this past year, hognose were everywhere.
Yep. Hogs are
But
getting big.
yeah, well, and it makes sense too. They have basically the perfect storm going for them. They have the size, so you can have more of them in a smaller space. You don't have to buy as bigger feeders. They're starting to get more mutations. They're still holding value. I mean, they have everything going for them, and people don't seem to be concerned about the bites and stuff. So
Right.
they're yeah, those things are gonna go to the moon. And obviously, corn snakes are always going to be corn snakes. They're a staple, and they always will be, and as they should be. They're fantastic animals.
Yeah.
Um, Tinley, Tinley is where you're going to see more of the obscure stuff. Um, like for me personally, there's always two old world rat snake breeders, so the Zirkles are always there. So I always
Okay.
go and talk to Rob and Amy, um, and then Larry Keller. He's one of the top guys with the Chinese beauties. So of course I'm
Oh,
always
really?
going, and yeah, prairie land herpeticulture. Um, yeah, if you're interested in any Chinese beauty stuff, especially morph stuff, he's got some awesome animals. I've gotten some
Okay.
really good stuff from him. So I enjoy that show mostly just to go to those two tables, honestly.
Nice.
Um, there's a lot of the usual stuff. You're going to see your BPs, your cresties, your gargoyles, leopard geckos,
Yeah.
the stuff that the hobby has gotten popular for. A lot of people complain that shows don't have enough diversity. They want to see more stuff, but from a vendor standpoint, you put out a table of obscure stuff, and those people will come up to you and say, "Man, this table's awesome. It's really cool to see this. This is what we've been wanting to see." And then you see them walk by again, and they have, you know, 8,000 ball pythons and, another colony of leopards and all that, which
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with that, but, I get wanting to see stuff, but, I also understand guys that don't wanna bring, because I know there's ball python breeders that have, like, tree monitors and white lip python, like, all this cool stuff, and like, "Oh, yeah, we don't even bother bringing them to shows because it's taking a spot that we could, make money to feed
Right.
these guys with other stuff." So,
Right.
um, but luckily with Tinley, people show up there with a lot of money in their pocket, and you know, they uh,
Yeah.
they pull the trigger on a lot of stuff.
Okay.
It's a
And
good
what
show.
can Yeah, and what can you say from your experience? Because again, from scrolling through your Instagram, you have vended Tinley before.
Yeah,
So what would you say that's like in comparison to maybe something like Daytona? And do you do any of like the smaller like Repticons or anything like that? Do you do any of that down here?
yeah. Well, like, so I work two jobs outside of
Okay,
all the animal stuff, so
gotcha.
getting time off is sometimes troublesome. But
No, I get you.
so when I can get time off and when I have stock, I haven't had the best production years lately.
Okay,
Um, so I kind of save them for the big shows. Um, I have always had the mindset of, if I'm going to do this, I want to, focus on the big shows, and I don't like set a amount or anything of, oh, I have to make X amount of money to cover my table and cover my, food and all that. I'm gonna
right.
be there regardless, whether if I'm vending or not. So, hotel, food, getting in the show, doing all that, like, that's money I was gonna spend anyway, so I don't look at it as I have to make that back.
Gotcha.
Um, but as far as vending the 2, I've been successful, at both shows every time I've gone.
Awesome.
Um, I'm not, like, selling out or anything like that, but if I go into every show, if I sell 1 animal, it's a success, and I've yet to be shut out on a show. I know it's gonna come at some point, but, uh, 5 years in, I haven't not sold something yet, so,
Yeah.
uh, it's a long drive, though. It's a very long drive up there.
Gotcha. And then what can you even say being a vendor who doesn't have your average ball python, leopard gecko, whatever on the table? How do you think that's fared for you? Because I'm sure there are people who may go to the shows looking for exactly what you have, but maybe you get someone brand new who wasn't expecting to buy, even a carpet that day. Like, what have you kind of seen with that?
Uh, Most of the time, the stuff that I'll have on my table it'll usually be things that the people who are gonna buy them already know what it is,
Okay.
type of situation. I will have people, it's their first snake. Um, and it's just like anyone buying any other type of first snake, I'm honest with them. I still work with Jag a little bit. So, um, and I'm not sure how much you know about Jag, but it's basically like the spider mutation.
Yes,
So it
that's
has
what
the
I've heard.
neuro and all that. Um, so, and they're pretty, they reduction in pattern, increase in yellow pigmentation, of course they're going to pop out. And
Yeah.
carpets are, they hatch out really dull and brown and ugly, and then they grow into their colors. They kind of do the
Okay.
opposite of what ball pythons do. Um, so people will see the Jags and they're like, "Oh, all right, well, we want that." And I've probably talked myself out of more Jag sales than I've made, because I want
Right.
someone to be happy with what they get, and especially if you're gonna end up with a 5, 6, 7 foot python, you want to know what you're getting into.
Of
And
course.
you know, uh, a 7 foot Jag with neuro during feeding time, um, that's that's something you really gotta be ready for and know what
Yeah.
you're doing, because that can go sideways real quick. But I did have one. It was Tinley a couple years ago. I had a family come up and they wanted to buy a snake for their 6-year-old, and that was what they did. They zeroed in on the Jag and all that. I talked him, was talking to him and all that, and I wasn't trying to be mean, but I asked. the parents like directly. I'm like, is this an impulse thing? Or have you guys looked into this a little bit? Because I wasn't comfortable giving the
Yeah.
kid a female coastal jag as their first
Okay.
snake. Like that, just if they weren't ready for it, or if the parents didn't do some background research or something like that, I didn't feel right about it. um, and I tried to be as nice as I could. I Well, they ended up going to the table next to me and bought a ball python, so I think it worked out probably for the
Yeah.
best. But like I said, I'm not here to make money and stuff. My conscience wouldn't have felt great if I knew that little kid was going to end up getting bit by the thing, and then end up hating it, and the parents didn't know what to do with it. And you don't want to
Yeah.
put animals on Craigslist, is how I look at it. You want them
Of
to go
course.
to good homes. So
No, and at
um,
least you can take it from me that I say I can appreciate that, because if I was in a similar situation, I would be also talking. I used to do it at a pet store all the time. I mean, not that I made commission off of sales, but like I would try to feel the people out and like um see like, do you really know what this is, what you're doing? And you kind of assess from there. It's
yeah,
actually not that hard to do. Uh,
yeah,
when you talk to people for a good 5 minutes or so. It used to be with even fish too, is like, can this really fit in your tank or whatever? So yeah,
yeah,
it's a good gauge. So
yeah.
um
Now get this
and
rainbow shark for your 10-gallon, right?
yes, yes.
Yeah, make sure you get three of them because they have to
Yep.
spool. Yeah,
So no, I mean, even more so with the reptiles, because it's not something that you want, you know, dumped onto someone else, or like, I don't know, even worse. But yeah. Um all right, cool. And then what other any species like we missed that you didn't talk about that aren't colubrids or carpets that you have in the collection?
yeah, Macklot's pythons. I absolutely adore Macklot's pythons.
Okay.
They are, man, they as babies, they are spitfires. They they are all about that life, if you will. Um, but man, once they hit about a year and a half, about 3, 4 foot, um, just something kind of clicks, and they're like, all right, everything isn't trying to kill me. I can relax. And yeah, they're cool captives. I've produced them a few times. I have long-term captive animals, F1 animals. I got so there's a lot of diversity in my bloodlines that I'm working with. So
Okay.
I'm really happy about that. So that's another thing I try to do with my projects. I try to diversify as much as I can. I don't want to just breed siblings to oblivion.
Right.
So it's stuff that, if you can do it responsibly, get fresh blood in and all that, or just get stuff from other breeders that, got them from, you know, different places.
Yep.
Uh, that's been a big goal of mine with those guys, especially since they still come in from time to time, from Indo and stuff. There's no reason not to, especially if they come in as babies.
Okay. Cool. And then segueing back to the colubrids a little bit. So you had mentioned to me before the show, which is totally cool, that you haven't really had a ton of experience breeding anything, but you actually listed off to me more species than I thought you even had. What are your
Yeah.
what are your potential plans when it comes to looking to breed some of these species? Are there some that are just for you? Are there some that you're like, yes, like full steam ahead? What's that looking like?
So, um, a lot of the stuff is more tropical in nature, so they don't need a brumation. So
Okay,
that's, the blue beauties, the Taiwan beauties, the Ridley eye. I bred Ridley eye in my carpet python room. They,
nice.
you hear that Asian rat snakes have to be super cold all the time, high humidity, all this stuff. And some species, yes, the porfs and the mandarins, the more fossorial stuff, yeah, they need to be, a little cooler. Um, I am realizing that I have a two-story house, so my main room is
Okay,
upstairs. Uh, I made that decision for some reason, but it works out for the pythons. And I keep the colubrids downstairs,
okay,
and it gets a lot cooler down here. And stuff that I thought that I couldn't even keep has thrived. Um, and like I told you before the show, I produced breadlie down here. And once I
Right.
did that, that kind of got me thinking. I'm like, wait, I probably can do this. Um, and I've gotten infertils from Chinese beauties and stuff, and I've gotten that far. So I'm like, all right, I think I think I know what I did wrong. I don't think it was temperature related. So um, that's kind of what my plan is going forward, is to have stuff down here, let the room do what it's naturally going to do, get down into the mid 60s or so. So it won't be like a true brumation. And if I
Right.
have issues with things, I mean, I can always get a wine cooler or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to that idea. That's what a lot of people do here in Florida anyway.
Yeah.
Um, but as far as going full steam ahead, um, I'm definitely focusing mostly on Chinese beauties and the morphs.
Okay.
Um, because I got calicos. Calicos are my favorite. They're so cool and
Yeah.
so variable. Anytime someone's talking about a palmetto corn, like I try to be like, hey, just check out calico beauties. Like it's right there. You get a little more pattern, and it's
Yeah.
something different, but you can keep them the same. I just try to plant that seed when I can. But I have those. I have hypos. I have aneries. Um, hypo calicos. There's
Okay.
a whole bunch of stuff. So there's a lot of room to mess with the beauties, especially the Chinese beauties, and kind of all these different things we haven't hit yet.
Nice.
Um, and then Japanese rats are probably the second one. I got a good
Okay.
group of those going. I got normals. I got albinos. I ended up the patternless ones I had in Daytona. I don't know if you remember those or not. I ended up keeping that pair.
Okay.
So,
Nice.
which we're not sure. So that's a project from Matt.
Yeah.
We're not sure if those are like anery animals or not.
Interesting.
So they're also het albino. So I'm really excited to raise those up and just see if they are anery. We might hit snows, um, because the adults of the patternless stuff or the stripe stuff, however you want to look at it, um, are completely blue. So
Mm.
when normal Japanese rats are going to be green and blue, when you take yellow out of that, like anery does, you get a blue snake. So,
Well, is it anery or axanthic? Because anery takes away red pigment, doesn't it?
um, so when you get into the old world rat snake stuff, so many terms are used
Oh, okay.
interchangeably.
Okay.
So my hypo beauties look a lot like T positive beauties. And then there's probably 3 or 4 different lines slash looks of T positives, and then people use hypo.
Interesting.
That's part of the reason I kind of want to have the group that I have and kind of figure some stuff out, you know, because there's a lot of things we don't know about them. So that's kind of part of
Okay.
the idea with
Yeah, and
those.
I like being able to use the scientific terms, like even with the Texas rat showing what anery does. I have that animal from Kevin because I get to say, anery that it takes away red, and that snake is a black and white snake. So,
Yeah.
um, easy way to show when I hatched a bunch of red and orange offspring this year.
Yeah.
They're all het.
Well, the cool thing with these guys is that we don't actually know yet. Like this
Okay.
is still first generation stuff. So that's part of the excitement of it, is
Yeah.
seeing what is gonna come out, and it could just be that it's not anything except a pattern mutation. Um, but I mean, either way, it's exciting, and I'm super excited to have them. And they're more Japanese rats. Like those things are so cool.
Right.
So I'm excited with those.
Yeah. Um, cool. All right. Anything else? The rhino rats, you have any plans on breeding those guys?
Yeah, they probably have another year
Okay,
for
cool.
I'll put them together. Um, and I'll probably just cohab those and just let them do their thing.
Nice.
Because I
Yeah,
think a lot of time less is more with what we do. I learned that with green trees. So
okay.
you see guys kind of get a little too attention to detail with some animals. I noticed that a lot with green tree keepers. I kept mine at ambient in my Python room, raised them, bred them, produced animals with them, and they thrived. Like
Okay.
after the newest book came out, that Julander and I forget who the other guy was that helped with that, and basically debunked a lot of the stuff that we thought we knew as a hobby, as far as size of females that they had to be, temperatures that these guys were actually at. We pretty much found out that we were making these guys way too big and keeping them way too hot, and people were having a lot of issues. And I had a
Interesting.
group of imports that I kept just like I just told you, at ambient,
Yeah.
and they thrived and bred and did everything that a snake will do. So sometimes less is more.
Okay. Um, and yeah, something I wanted to circle back to because I meant to mention it. You had mentioned like the porfs, you know, them needing those lower temperatures and stuff, and me and you kind of going against the grain with what people said. So, I was telling you I keep all my species in within the all the same rack systems in the same room, all next to each other. So
Mhm.
my porfs are in here as well. And with that said, I used to keep my original female up in my room because it was cooler in my bedroom in a
Yeah.
relatively small tank. It was a tank. I had her in there. She was doing great, whatever, eating no problem. But I was like, I'm sick of the tank being up there. The rest of my collection's down here. Like it would be better for her to be down here. So I'm like, well, why don't I try moving her into a tub and just seeing how she does? I'm like, I
Mhm.
understand, they talk about the temperature, but I'm like, if I stick her at the bottom of the rack, maybe it'll be cool enough. And we'll kind of see and go from there. Put her in.
Yeah.
She ate the next week. I was like, okay, I guess I'll keep watching.
Mhm.
Kept eating, and now she's doing just fine. And now I have a second baby cockseye that I got from Matt that is also towards the bottom. He's actually in the bottom of a smaller rack, eats every
Mhm.
week like a freaking champ. And then the two Violanta I picked up from you, the male was actually giving, or from Matt. The
Yeah.
male was giving me like weird issues. Not even issues. He just like wouldn't eat. The female would eat off tongs for me. She would eat
Yeah.
frozen thawed off tongs, and the male I had to leave the mouse in there, the frozen mouse in there overnight, frozen
Mhm.
thawed. Um, so I just thought that was weird. But either way, they were both eating. So I'm like, okay, I guess I could keep porfs in this room with no issue. And what Matt did just school me on is that the three main subspecies, you actually don't brewmate them, but he told me brewmate the Volanti. So I'm actually
Mhm.
going to put them down with the Texas rats. And I guess that's because of their locale in China, I would assume. Yes?
Yeah. Yeah. It
Okay.
gets China gets cold.
China gets colder.
Yeah. But yeah, as long as they're, I mean, a lot of stuff, as long as they're, you know, eating and doing what they need to, a lot of times the temperatures are more like during breeding and stuff and how low they got to get to, get
Right.
viable sperm and all that. Um, One thing I do with a lot of these species, especially the ones that possibly have more humidity requirements, uh, give them options in their enclosures. Just because they need high humidity doesn't mean the whole tank or whole tub has to be, like a rainforest. Uh, Humid hides do wonders. And
Right.
give them the option, because they don't always want to be, soaking wet and in 100% humidity, So if they have options to choose when they're in that micro environment, then, they seem to do really well. And I pretty much do that with almost all of my colubrids. I give them
Okay.
a humid hide, and then my arboreal stuff, I give arboreal humid hides, and they can just pick and choose when they want to be in that higher
Nice.
humidity. So
Cool. Yeah. So one thing I also wanted to talk about, something you brought up to me. You and your friends are relaunching Herpetoculture magazine.
Yes, we
That's what
are.
it's called, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's cool. Tell me a little bit about that project, because to be honest, I don't think I was too. I may have known it existed, but like I didn't really know about it until you brought it up, and I definitely didn't know you had a hand in it. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So, Herpetoculture magazine, me and Justin Smith, we did that. We did it for 2 years, a little over 2 years. Um, and basically, it was at the time it was a monthly digital publication, and the idea was just to get content out. We wanted it to be, for hobbyists by hobbyists. We let anyone write, um, and we got really good info because you have people that are passionate about all the different species that they keep, and it's basically the same idea that you have with this podcast. We just wanted to
Yeah.
get information out about different species to kind of let people know, hey, there's more out there. There's nothing wrong with the mainstream species. We're not
Yeah,
poo-pooing
of
on
course.
those, but goodness, there's so much out there, and you can keep a lot of stuff like the mainstream species and be successful, or just tweak one thing or two things here, and then you can keep something completely different. And it's just cool to have different stuff. So we did that for the couple years, and then just with life and all that, we decided we needed a break. And this past Daytona, because I've been getting the itch again. I'm like, man,
Yeah,
we had some really, really good issues that did very well, and people were still talking about it. And we decided to back it down instead of monthly, because that was daunting, putting out a magazine every month.
right.
It's going to be quarterly this time, just kind of make it easier on us, because
Yeah,
like, we're not charging anybody for anything. We're not getting paid anything. It's literally just hey, we really enjoy the hobby, and we've always had the idea we want to leave it better than we found it. So
right.
what better way than to put easy information for people to digest and possibly learn something from, uh, and do that. So we're hoping for the first issue to drop in January
Yep.
of next year. We're working on it as we speak,
Yep.
and yeah, we're really excited about it. We do, I guess, shameless plug. We do have Instagram and Facebook page. You can still go to issue.com and see the old issues that we put out, and you could see if that's something that you'd want to follow or check out. You can buy physical copies if you want, um, which actually I think I have got a few here.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so they were really fun. It was a fun project to do, and I'm really happy that we're uh, we're getting back
Yeah.
into it. And it's a open invitation to anyone. If there's something that you would like to write about, we we don't really turn anyone down. We just have a couple rules. We can go over that if you decide to reach out to us. That's mainly just don't bash anybody, and just be
Yeah.
positive. And if you're, and it doesn't have to be like a typical, which I'm trying to find more content that's not like I keep this species, I keep it at this temperature, we breed it like this, here's this species. I
Right.
want more like personal, like, once you got the species, like the journey to figuring them out, what mistakes did you make, how did you learn this, and who told you that, and then you put it all together, and then it ended up being better for you and the animal. That's the kind of stuff I'm
Right.
trying to seek out. So
Right. And make sure you send me afterwards. Send me the link so I can put it in the YouTube description. Whatever link you could send me, I'll put it in
yeah,
there.
yeah, for sure.
Um, and yeah, you were very much nice enough to ask me to write something about Texas rats, which is not complete yet. I am in the process of kind of like getting my words together, but I am
Hmm.
definitely working about it. But that was very nice of you to ask, and
Of
I'm very
course.
happy to right about it, because yes, I didn't want to make it like, oh, I keep it like this and that, and I don't even
Yeah.
think I have enough experience to speak on what's correct and like give like a care sheet almost. Like I kind of want to give my story working with the species and just
Yeah.
seeing it over the years.
Well, what we realized the first round was some of the best articles we got were from newer keepers that, not to kind of bash any guys that have been keeping a while, because I mean, I'm in that group too, but you kind of get stuck in your ways and
Right.
you kind of think, oh, well, this is how I do it. That's the only way that it can be done. And to see newer keepers that, like the keeper that starts now is a lot different from the keeper that started like when we started,
Yeah.
Um, so it's awesome to see a different viewpoint of how they approach things and what their priorities are, if they're setting up an enclosure or what their feeding schedule is or what they feed or something like that. I think that's something we all should kind of strive to be is open to new ideas, because you can learn so much even from someone who's been keeping for 6 months. Like I've learned
Right.
plenty from people that just started, and they'll say something, I'm like, I never thought of that. That's actually
Yeah.
a really good idea. So that part of it is really cool. And two, like, like people have this mentality of or this thought process like, oh, I haven't been keeping these animals for decades. How am I the authority to write on these things? Like, no, it's not about that. It's about
Yeah.
having somebody that's passionate about a species and put something out there, so people can feel that passion and possibly get into that species as well. So
Right.
that's the whole point
No,
of it.
yeah. No, that's awesome. And I think it's good. I think people like seeing that, both newer people and even like the old school keepers, like the magazines. There's kind of like I don't know. There's like just a fun thing about having like these physical copies and reading these articles from you know faces and names you may have heard of before.
Yeah, for sure. And like, what's cooler than seeing, having a physical magazine that you wrote an article in,
Yeah, yeah, that
like,
is cool.
yeah. So, really happy to get that going again. Really excited to get stuff back out. Actually, one of the I ramble a lot. I'm sorry, but
No, it's all good. Go for it.
get it. One of the things that was really cool the first go around. So Zach Loafman, he teaches at West Liberty,
Yup.
and he has the herpetological program and all that. He actually made the magazine required reading for all of his
Oh wow.
students. Wow, while we were doing that, so um, for it to be, on that level and stuff, and just the content we were getting from people and how, um, people were just so excited to put out what they knew about whatever species they were talking about. Um, it was just cool, man. So I'm just really excited to get it going again.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun ride.
yeah, think so. Um, all right. Do you have, because I talked about it beforehand, do you have any species you could show that's like on hand? Anything cool? I definitely want the people to see. Do you have your rhino rat snakes accessible?
They're in the next room. I can go grab one real quick. If you don't
Can
mind,
you?
like a second? Yeah, of course.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, just give me 1 second. I'll be right back.
no problem. Guys, the rhino rats, I think, is probably going to be one of my dream species. I mean, you see these things and they're just so cool. I mean, it's a snake with a little horn on the nose, and it's bright, pure green. I mean, it's awesome. And guys, like I mentioned, if you have any questions for Billy, I didn't see any. Drop them in the chat, and I'll get them in before we wrap up tonight.
There we go.
There we go. Yeah.
Yeah, she was in her water bowl, so she's a little wet. But this is the one that's I took the pictures of for you.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
She is in the thumbnail.
Yeah. Yeah, she's know how the color's coming out, but
Yeah.
you can tell she's got like a lot of turquoise and like
Yup.
her belly is like blue and you can see too they're super chill. They're not, she's not whippy or anything like that. Usually arboreal stuff you're going to be, you expect them to be a little more snappy and all that. Um, like I have Amazon tree boas and they usually keep me
Right.
on alert, but no, these guys are, the hardest part about them is getting them started. Once you do, these things are bulletproof.
Yeah.
And another thing,
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see it or not. So the black in her pattern.
I actually do see that, like the white
Okay,
and black in there.
so the black is actually the skin in between the scales. Those aren't scales, and that's not color on
Interesting.
scales. That's actually the skin underneath these guys. So
Okay.
yeah, it's just another cool feature about them. But yeah, always a crowd favorite. These
Yeah.
guys.
And how big is that girl?
Let's see. She's probably 4
Oh
foot
yeah, I
or
forgot. I
so.
could put you on solo. Hold on 1 second.
Okay.
There. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, she's probably 4 foot. Could probably give her. I mean, by normal hobby, feeding guidelines, she could probably take an adult mouse. Uh, but rhinos actually prefer smaller meals.
Okay.
So I pretty much give her hoppers. For now, they like smaller meals.
Really?
They don't like big, fatty meals, stuff like that. So it's another reason like birds are good for these guys too, because
Yeah.
they're a leaner meal and stuff. But, yeah, they're just super cool, super inquisitive. Just yeah, everybody should have these guys. We have
Yeah.
in my I have a group chat that a bunch of us are in, and a couple guys are like, "Oh, bear and I," it's like the battle of the horned snakes,
Yup.
pretty much. And a bunch of us are like, "No, rhino's where it's at." Like, "No, bear and I." And you can't go wrong with any. But these guys are just
I
so
think the
cool.
rhinos
And
have the cleaner nose though. I feel
yeah,
like it's a little
their
variable
noses,
on the barons.
their noses. And then I'm biased, but I really like Gonyosoma, so the red-tailed green rats, and they kind
Yes.
of have that
They
head
resemble
shape
them.
and all
Yup.
that a little bit. They don't act like them at all, but which is a good thing. I definitely wouldn't be able to hold a red-tailed green rat like this easy. But
Oh yeah.
yeah, no, these guys are killer. And just the blues and stuff that comes out. I know everybody's like going crazy over the solid blue one that Ryan McVeigh has at
Yes, I
Vivisect
think I
right
saw
now.
that.
Yeah, which there's a lot of proving out that needs to be done with that. So hopefully that does. But the blues I've seen that Matt and Rob have put out with their selective breeding, like
Right.
I saw some blue rhinos at Rob's place that like I'm not poo-pooing on Ryan's, but like it was right there.
Okay.
Like they're two blue snakes,
Right.
It was yeah. So uh, yeah, no, these guys are cool, and this is their mentality. They're unless there's food around, which is what you want your snakes to
Okay.
be. You want them to
Yeah,
be,
of course.
wanting food and stuff. But how many arboreal snakes can you just chill like this, and they're just gonna hang out and not be flighty and freaking out and
Probably not many.
all that? So yeah, I did
And
a
then oh, go ahead.
I did a presentation. I told you at for the Herp Society,
Yup.
and well, I've done two for them. The second one I did was all on old world rats, and I just kind of took a whole bunch and kind of talked about them.
Nice.
And I ended with rhinos, and that basically was where it stopped. Was everyone's like, "Oh my gosh!" and people were holding them, and It's like, all right, I guess we're done with the presentation then. We'll just kind of hang out
Yeah.
at the rhino for a while. But,
I mean, how could you not? It's so impressive, and I mean, just like the stereotypical green snake. Although there's really not that many like bright green snakes out there.
no, and the color palettes, like I don't know how well it's coming across, but this one has greens. She has turquoise. Her belly is blue. You know,
I'm not
um,
seeing the blues as well, but I see a lot of the white coming in between the scales and stuff.
yeah,
I see it a little bit better now.
yeah,
But yeah,
yeah. They're super cool snakes. And they're so easy to keep, man. I didn't keep these for a long time because I thought, I kind of had that I'm not a good enough keeper, I'm not
right.
advanced enough type of thing. And once I finally got one that was established, it was like, man, I really wasted a lot of time
Well,
doubting
you may have to
myself.
you may have to put me in touch with the right person about them.
Well, well, we'll if you want some, we'll get you in touch with the right people
All right.
for sure.
Jesus in the chat was asking about the Chinese beauty snakes.
Yeah, I can
If
take
you have
yeah, I
if
can
you
take one
have
out.
any. Okay.
Not going to be as easy to see as this one, but
Right.
yeah, I'll take one. I'll take out my nice's calico. She's a
Cool.
yearling. I'll take her out.
Okay.
So let me put this one back.
Yep. Chat and anyone watching the replay, I hope you guys are enjoying this and learning a little bit about some of these snakes. The Asian rat snakes is definitely something I've grown fond of in the last few years. Just such cool animals, such variability. And obviously anyone who's watched my channel or seen me on other shows before, I love my bamboo rat snakes. I mean, so diving into these other species is something you're gonna see from me over the next few years.
Yeah, they're so cool, man. They're just so cool. All right. So she goes. So these guys are a little more. Uh, they're gonna be more, I guess, flighty, if you will.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be as nice. So this one, she's probably. I mean, you see the colors on her tail, but she went under the computer, of course. Uh, but well, it's a live show with animals, right?
Yeah. Samantha is asking, is this Sorsha?
That is Sorsha. So that's my girlfriend. She
Oh,
named her.
okay.
She knows. She knows it's Sorsha.
Gotcha.
Yes, sweetie, this is Sorsha. Yeah, she was. As soon as she saw this one, she was like, "Can I name it?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course." Because I don't really name stuff. But, yeah, she is just.
I'll probably get a text from my girlfriend in the next 2 minutes. When are you gonna let me name one?
Sorry, man. But yeah, so here I'll get one more out that might be a little
Okay.
less shy. So that was a calico. I really dig the calicos because it's a pattern and color mutation, which you usually don't see stuff that's both.
Right. Yeah, some of the calico morphs, like even in black rat snakes, I've seen the most impressive colors on like the calico black rats.
Yeah, for sure. So this is a hypo, or what it's called a hypo,
Okay.
but that's kind of part of why we're gonna do some breeding and stuff. And it's kind of hard to see, but like in the sunlight, I tried to get pictures of this one for you when I was getting pictures
Okay.
for you. Orange, and then like where the white would be is like purple. So kind of like your typical
Gotcha.
T positive kind of stuff. But Yeah, they're definitely a little more flighty. They just want to go. They're not the Chinese aren't really ones that are going to stand their ground too much unless you're, really provoking them.
Okay.
But yeah, they just want to go. They're not going to like curl up with you and watch TV with you or anything. But,
Right.
yeah.
Awesome, man.
Yeah. We got time for one more. So
Yeah, what you got?
time for one more. I'll show you one of my favorites.
It's always time.
All right. So just a normal Japanese rat snake.
Nice.
I really dig how this one's darker. So everybody always wants the Kunashir Island stuff that's, more
Okay.
blue and all that.
Blue.
But this one is a lot darker than stuff I've seen before.
Okay.
I'm just really digging it, man. It's super cool. They're just such a cool snake. So I put these guys, I don't know if you can tell, like head structure, opposed to this one with the beauty. This one is definitely more, I look at these, so Japanese rats, Korean rats, Russian rats, they look, behave, and have the body and head structure as our North American stuff.
I was going to say, it does look fairly similar.
Yes. So there's old world rat snakes encompass a ton of different species. So like saying an old world rat is, like these, but then you put this next to one of your porfs and it's completely different.
Right? Oh yeah.
So I myself, I'm not like I don't do taxonomy or anything like that, but just in my head, I kind of split old world rats into actual rat snakes, like this kind of stuff. I kind of, they're like our North American stuff. And then racers. And that's where you get,
yes.
That's where you get your beauties, your
yeah, because like they even call like the
rats.
Like the beauties, or actually no, like the cave dwellers, like they call them like
striped tail racers. That's another it's another name for them. But you start looking at all the different species. You'll start to see that there's I just noticed like the racer stuff, they're gonna act more whippy, they're gonna be a little more defensive, they're gonna be quicker. And you're ready for that. That's your beauties. Anything in the Colugnathus genus, anything in the Gonyosoma genus. Besides the rhinos, some people still have those in the Gonyosoma genus. Just kind of depends on what camp you're in. So that's another thing to look at. The stuff that I look at as more rat snake, is like I was saying, the Japanese rats, the Korean rats, Russian rats, stuff like that. I don't have any anymore, but Russian rats are another one they're so easy to keep. They're so chill.
I wanted to mention that to you. I think I've heard someone say, and it could have been Zach, because I listen to his voice every 2 weeks. Zach or Clint or Matt, that Russians are arguably like as easy as corn snakes, like just one of the easiest like beginner snakes to take care of.
Yeah, they could easily give corns a run for their money if you're okay with something getting a little bigger. I'll take a Russian over any king snake.
Okay.
Day. Milk snakes, super whippy, all that.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty much the Japanese rat, how you just saw it was just kind of chilling and just doing what rat snakes do. Very rarely do I get tagged by them. And the same thing with the Russians. Now, if there's food around, they're they get in that mode, and that's any animal. But more people should give them give them a thought. If you want something different, but you can keep the same as a lot of the North American stuff. The only difference is usually, well, they can handle colder temps. I mean, they're from Japan and Russia, so it gets
Right.
those two species, so it gets fairly cold. Um, but yeah, they're super super easygoing. Yeah, I won't say too much because when you get Christian on here, he'll sell
Okay.
them a little more for you. Yeah, I
Cool.
don't want to take all his thunder with that.
Okay. Awesome. Um, I have basically a couple wrap-up questions for you. So, what would you say the future of Uwabami Reptiles looks like? Is there anything you're working towards? Anything like you see in your future, short term, or kind of just going with the flow? What's it kind of looking like?
So um, obviously so my main focus, snake wise, carpets, old world rats, and Amazon tree boas. That's where
Okay.
the main focus is going to be for the foreseeable future. Um, Outside of that, I just got some recent projects that have kind of, I got them for me, which obviously I get all this for me, but I
Nice.
think we get caught up in the everything has to be a project, everything has to, kind of pay its way type of thing.
Right.
I think of, many of us breed and vend and all that. It's very easy to get into that mentality. I know I did. So recently, I got some water dragons. I used to keep water dragons back in the day, and I
Nice.
wanted to get those for the longest time. And I got a couple when I was in Tinley, and holy crap, man! It's like I'm having so much fun, like with these things. It's so
Yeah,
crazy,
that's
you know.
awesome, and that's what it's about, and that's what I try telling people, like, you gotta enjoy it, like, if you love walking up to that enclosure every day, like, that's the best thing in the world, like, what's better than that?
Yeah,
The
yeah,
day you're not enjoying these reptiles anymore is the day you should drop it all and quit.
yeah, for sure. And just with how, things have gone with the collection, recently, I know I alluded to it before the show.
Yeah,
Um, I kind of needed a change. So the water dragons have really helped with that. And I also got Suriname horned frogs. I like fat frogs for
okay,
some reason.
cool.
Every time I tell people that, they're like, dude, what, like, what? What do you mean that? But, um, dude, they're so cool, man. And like,
Yeah,
they're
it's a
so
cool little pet.
easy. And
Yeah,
yeah, like, they're so easy. And, for whatever reason, not a lot of people really pay them any mind. And it's, yeah, it's just been really cool. And I've started taking, so another thing I started doing to kind of help me get back into the swing of things is I started taking notes on everything.
okay,
Uh, and dude, just in the few months I've done that, the things that I've like noticed about species that I've kept forever that I never really paid attention to. Holy crap, man. Like I could have had so much information at this point,
right.
but it was all more turn and burn there for a while. Um, and I'm slowing down. Like I'm still, I still have a lot of animals, but I'm slowing down a little more. I'm enjoying it and the
Yeah,
animals a little more. And yeah, and I know like with that, I mean, how can you not be successful, when
yeah, of
you're doing
course.
that when you're keeping. Um, so it's not so much about numbers anymore. It's more like, man, this is just really cool. And I mean, all the different species I have, I mean, there's so much to learn and so much to keep me engaged with stuff. So the future looks bright over here
Yeah,
for sure.
no, that's awesome. And kind of my last and final thing, because obviously tie it all together, the Colubrid Corruption Podcast. What would you say to the people in the chat, to the average person, who may not know that some of these colubrid species exist, and that like they maybe want to get into something new? Like, what's your message to them?
Uh, be open to new species because there's a ton out there, and research. Know what you're getting into. Talk to as many people as you can. Um, Not to these are getting kind of well, they're getting popular now because there's a lot more morphs, but I really liked the idea of king rat snakes. I loved the idea of them, and I had them for a couple years, and I kind of ignored some of the stuff I was told and read. I'm like, oh no, that won't happen with me. There's usually if you do your research, you'll know exactly what you're getting into
Okay.
with a lot of stuff, um, and just be realistic about what what you're getting into. Like with those, they're called, they have a nickname, the Stinking Goddess. They earn that
Yeah.
very well. So just research, talk to people, understand what you're getting into, and just have realistic expectations. Uh, if you have, like let's say you have Texas rats, just as an example.
Yeah.
Um, if you get something else, be realistic. It's not going to be a Texas rat. It's going to be a
Oh
whole
yeah.
different species that, I've seen people that they'll branch out because they want something different, but then it doesn't act exactly like what they've always kept. And it ends up being an issue. It's like, well,
Well, like I
you
was
wanted
saying
something different.
before, yeah, that's what I had the learning curve with that Violenta I picked up from you. I had the female that was doing
Mhm.
just fine, but I kind of had to learn that that male wasn't going to take off tongs for me, and he was being kind of an asshole. And I was like, okay, what do I got to do? So I left it in the tub overnight. He ate, and then I kept doing that, and he kept eating. So it's like, yes, that's that learning curve, and sometimes you gotta, you know,
Yeah.
keep it. You have to figure it out on the fly.
Well, and then too, like once you start producing stuff and all that, you'll start appreciating the drop feeding stuff a little more when you have
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. I'm
more
sure.
numbers and stuff. Yeah, when you can
Yep.
just open tubs and chuck them in and
Yeah.
keep it moving, you're like, all right, cool. I know he's gonna take it, and I don't have to play the song and dance
You're
with him and
no,
stuff.
you're right. I definitely don't have as many animals, so I don't have that issue yet. But yeah.
You'll get there, man. You're on your
Yeah.
way.
Yep. No, for sure. Any final thoughts? Anything else you want to throw out there? Or
Uh, yeah, just keep what you like, guys.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. There's especially here in this, I kind of alluded to it earlier with, the Tampa and Orlando area and the saturation of reptile shows here. Um, there's a lot. And hearing some of the vendors and seeing it, how all they do is chase the market. It's not all of them, obviously, but there's some, and you hear the way they talk about things and stuff. And man, like this hobby would really suck if that was the mentality, at least for me, if I took that
yeah,
with it, like I've, I kind of put most of my eggs in the carpet python basket. So,
yeah,
obviously I wasn't chasing any markets. I dig those. And then all the obscure stuff I have too, like just if you like something, work with that. Everything else will come in time.
yeah.
Everything doesn't have to be a business. Every animal doesn't have to be a part of a project. Just have fun with it.
Yeah.
That'll be
Well,
my
I
advice.
think I get to see it good on both ends because I did decide to do the ball pythons, and yes, I do enjoy them because if I didn't enjoy them, like there would be no point to have this like whole, not that there would be no point, but like this business mindset that I've taken on in the last year or
Mhm.
so wouldn't be as strong if it was like a full colubrid collection.
Yeah.
Because when we're talking ball pythons, I mean, this market is just changing so rapidly. But keeping both sides and like hearing different opinions, it allows me to see both things. I think there's a helpful middle you can kind of find with it, and I like to think
Yeah.
I'm potentially in that middle ground where it's like, yes, you do have to think a little bit business, but like, of course, you want to keep the stuff you enjoy. So I try to do both. I know
Yeah.
not everyone's looking
100%.
for a Texas rat snake. I mean, shit, but I put them on the table at these shows. I have people looking at them and it's cool, but I know not many people are gonna come around and buy a $1,000 Texas rat snake. But you know,
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the same with the carpets too, like
yeah,
it's one of those things where, like we said before, the person that's going to buy that animal from you, they already know that they're going to buy that animal.
Yep.
You know, that's what they're
Yeah.
looking for. That's not they're walking by and they see it and they go, oh, what's that? I need that, you know?
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, you know, yeah, you always want to cover feeding bills and stuff like that. But,
Yes.
you know, if you're keeping what you enjoy and, you know, if you have something that you don't quite enjoy, like I did with the king rats, I'll be honest, and you know, I think if a lot of people are honest with having stuff that they weren't super jazzed about, I didn't take care of those as well as I could have. I mean, I kept them,
Right.
you know, they were healthy and stuff, you know, like I'm not going to say I neglected them, but, you know, definitely I wasn't going into their cages as much as I do the beauties or the radiated rats or something like that, you know.
Gotcha.
Um, so yeah, if you keep what you like, you're going to take better care of it too, in my experience.
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been an amazing, just over an hour and a half. There's been about, I think the people have floated in and out, but I want to say there's probably been about 20 people in here, like all together. I just want to say big thank you to you for being my episode number 2 guest. It means a lot for you to come onto the show and talk about it. You've had a lot of experience in the game, and you know, hopefully we could have these conversations down the line at another time. Hopefully you're breeding in the future, and we could definitely have some more expanded conversations on some things. And
yeah, let's do
yeah,
it.
looking forward to seeing what you do with your colubrids. So yeah, everyone, thank you so much to Billy Uwabami. Make sure you follow him on Instagram. Your Instagram is just straight Uwabami Reptiles,
Yeah,
right?
Uwabami Reptiles,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Awesome. Guys, go give him a follow. Check him out. Billy, I'm going to throw you backstage and we'll talk after I end the show.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I think that was an awesome episode. You know, like I said at the beginning, Billy and I met at the Daytona Expo, but we definitely haven't talked in this much depth since then, just a little bit in the Instagram DMs. This was an awesome time learning some more about him, about the snakes he keeps. I'm very interested in a lot of the species he keeps. So yeah, maybe you'll see some of that stuff in the future. And stay tuned, because next week we're gonna have a usual suspect in my friend group, and he was in the chat before. I won't give it away. He's a hognose guy. That might give it away. We're gonna talk hognoses next week, Western hogs, from my buddy. And yeah, guys, hope you have a great weekend. Again, I had it up there. All my socials were down there. They're in the description. Any t-shirts, Meteoric Serpents t-shirts, feel free to send me a message and we can work on that. But otherwise, hope you guys had a great weekend. Have a great night. Peace out.